Hello. So excited to bring another activity to you guys today. Just gonna wait a second for it to load. Great. So today I'm gonna be doing outdoor art, but as you can tell, I'm inside. Can you? Okay, sorry. As you can tell, outdoor art is inside today, but that's okay because we can still bring the outdoors in and do our activity here. So I went outside earlier and I went and found a couple of leaves. So I have this one from a dandelion. This one I thought was really cool. Found it on the ground. This one is from an ivy and it has some very cool veins in it that I'm gonna love to see when it comes out on our dough. This one I actually found on a tree we have inside. So if you have any plants inside, you can use those leaves too if you can't go outside. Because if you live anywhere near me, it is pouring rain outside. I also found this one, which is a very cool type of pine tree. And I'm excited to try a flower to see if I can get an imprint of this dandelion. So this is the dough that I made yesterday, and it's very fun, and you can leave imprints on it. So this is one that I made, and you can see the marks that I left in it from the plant that I used. And then we can paint it too, which is very cool. Here's another one, and this one is not painted, but you can still see the imprint inside. So what we need to make this dough is we need salt, some flour, and we'll need water too. So it calls for 1 cup of salt, 1 cup of flour, and a half cup of water. I think I'm gonna half the recipe just so that I don't make too much, but you can make as much as you want. And you can use any paint you want and any leaves or toys that you want to make imprints in this dough. So I'm gonna move this aside. And there are 2 ways to let the dough set. You can bake it or you can let it air dry. So I'm gonna preheat the oven to 325. So that when we're ready to bake it, we can bake some of it. But we can also let it air dry and we can paint it while it's still wet. So we're gonna start on our dough. I'm gonna get half a cup of flour, but remember, you can use a full cup because I'm gonna half my recipe so I make a little less. Welcome to anyone who's just joining. So I have half a cup of flour. I'm gonna do half a cup of salt. There's a big chunk in there. That means that my oven is done preheating, which is a little early because I still have to make and shape the dough, but it should be okay. There we go. There's our salt. So now I'm going to use 1/4 of a cup of water, but if you're doing the whole recipe, then it's half a cup. Pour that in. And I'm going to use my hands to mix this around because I think that's more fun. If you want to use a spoon, then go ahead. I'm just going to mix this together. And I want it to be the consistency of Play-Doh. It's going to stick a little bit until we get it all stuck together. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. You want to add water just enough that you have it all sticking together. So yesterday when I made these ones, I was using whole wheat flour, and that gave it a very sandy color, but I also think it made it a little bit grainy, so it's more likely to crack. Today, I'm using white flour, and I think that it's gonna look a little bit cleaner that way. Also, now is when you would add food coloring if you wanna make your dough a different color. Okay, so now my dough is starting to shape. Still a little sticky. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water. I'm gonna brush off my hands too. There we go. It's very much the consistency of Play-Doh. I can mold it easily. So I'm going to scoop up all the leftover. And now I'm going to get a piece of wax paper. You can use anything to keep your table clean, or you can do it right on the table if you can make a mess like that. Okay, so now I have my dough. I'm going to get some of it off my fingers. Grab a bit extra paper towel, just so we don't make that big of a mess, right? It's fun to make a mess, but only sometimes. So next, you can use a rolling pin to roll this out, but I'm just going to use a cup. I press on my head down. Uh-oh, it's sticking. Because it's sticking, I'm going to use a little bit of flour and just wipe that on my cup. So that way it won't stick as much. You want to make it nice and thin. So that it's easy to cut out. And here you can use cookie cutters. You can make any shape you want. Okay. I'm just going to use the top of my cup as a cutter. I'm going to cut out a circle. we go, there's my circle. Now I have a circle of dough. Maybe not a circle. It's close enough to a circle. I'm going to pat it down so I can get rid of any cracks that might form. And I'm going to start with this leaf because I think this one will look very cool. I'm going to put it on my dough. I want to make sure you can see that. And press it in. Make sure I press in that stem and those leaves. I'm going to press them in very good so I can make sure I get all of their little tiny veins because these have such cool patterns on them. So now I'm going to lift it up and you can see oh no, it's ripping. There we go. You can see the stem, but then you can see all those extra parts that are inside the leaf. It made it look very cool. So I have next to me a baking pan with some parchment paper. I'm going to put that on here. I'm going to make a few more. So using that dough again. And my rolling pin. Roll it out nice and thin. Cut it out again. Again, you can use cookie cutters for this. That circle stayed much better than the first one. So I'm going to take one of my leaves. I'm going to take this one. So I think that'll make a very cool pattern. We're going to push it down. I'm losing a few of its little pine needles. Some of them got stuck in there. You can see how cool that one turned out. You can see every little needle that got impressed in there. So I'm going to put that one on my baking tray. I think I'm going to make one more that I'm going to bake. And then the others we'll just paint while they're still wet. Just like I did with the ones I showed you from yesterday. I'll pick that one up real quick. So this one that I did yesterday, I painted this one while it was still wet. And now that it's dry, it looks very cool. You can also make them very small, like this one. I made this really tiny one and put a little hole in it so that it could be like a necklace or something. So you can make them any size you want. I think I'm going to make my next one smaller. So I'm going to take this spoon. I'm just going to cut out a little square. There we go. So next leaf I'm going to use is actually, I'm going to try the dandelion and see if I can make an imprint of this. I also think the dandelion might leave its color on the dough a bit, because when you rub a dandelion, its color comes off on you. Let's press that into our dough. I'll lift it up now. It's kind of hard to see, so maybe we'll do a sideways. I like the sideways better because you can see the stem down here, and then you can see the flowers. It's a little hard, the petals. It's a little hard to see, but it'll be very cool when it's baked and when we can paint it. So I'm gonna pop these in the oven. I'm gonna leave them in for about 5 minutes and then check on them. And then when they're dry, we'll take them out. Make sure you have an adult doing this if you're doing it alone. So if you didn't do that step, that is okay, because you can let it air dry. That way it can dry overnight and be all ready to play with and use later. So I also brought a few things other than the plants to make an impression on our dough. So I'm going to cut out a circle. I have some fake flowers here that I thought we could try. But I also thought if you have any animals, you can make imprints of them this way, or you can make imprints of their feet and see how they have different types of paw prints. So this goat has little hoof shapes. You can see in the bottom of his feet that there's a little mark between them because he has two little toes. So I made that in my imprint. Or make imprints of other things. I have this fake leaf here. I also make imprints of our toys. So if you watch my Lego videos, you know who this is. This is me. And here's a Lego. So we can make an imprint of our Lego and our Lego people. There you go. There's what the Lego looks like and the Lego person. So you can really do this with any toy that you have. So I'm gonna put that one here. You can even do it with anything else you have that makes an impression. This spoon made this one that I just showed you. So I made that out of this. So now I'm going to take my dough and I'm going to make another leaf one. You can even use this dough to make an imprint of your own hand. That way you'll always remember how big your hand was when you made it. So I have really big hands and I don't think I have enough dough for my whole hand. But I'll show you what that's like. Maybe I'll make an imprint of just one finger. Here. Okay. Cut out a little shape. Kind of made a triangle this time. And I'm going to make an imprint of just my finger. But if you make your whole hand, that's very cool, and you can see what your hand looked like. Also, using your finger, you can make a fingerprint and see all the little tiny, let me wipe off all that flour on my hand, and you can see all those teeny tiny little lines on your finger are showing up on our dough. So you always remember what your fingerprint looks like, because everyone has a different fingerprint. So I'm going to take my cup and I'm going to make another circle. This is coming to the end of my dough, but if you did the full recipe, you probably have a lot more dough. I'm going to take this one because I think this is going to look very cool. It doesn't really fit, but that's okay. I'm only going to fill it part of the way. And press that in. Pressing it into my dough so that it makes a mark. It'd be very cool to do this with a pine cone too. Lift it up. And that one turned out very cool. Let me see if I can pick that up. I don't want to stretch it too much because that'll mess up the design. You can see the stem very well. And then you can see all these little lines of where the needles are, the pine needles. So this is the end of my dough. Actually, I'm going to mix in this bit too. So this is the end of my dough. And I'm going to get one more thing. I have this fake flour here. And this is what I used last time, and it turned out very cool. I'm just gonna knead my dough down. I can use the rolling pin too, but this is easy. I'm gonna make it nice and small because I'm actually gonna make a charm like the one I showed you. So I'm gonna take this and press it in just like we've been doing. And like I said, that one I knew was going to turn out very cool. So I made it into a leaf shape and then imprinted this plant on it. It looks like a very cool leaf. So I'm going to take the end of this stick. I'm just going to poke a hole in the top. Make it a little bigger. So that way, as this one dries, I can put a string through it and hang it or make it a necklace. So next, I also have some paint with me. And we're going to paint these ones while they're still here. I'm going to check on the ones that I have in the oven, and then we'll come back. They're still not hard, so I'm going to put them back in. Remember, the oven is very hot, and if you decide to put it in here, you need to have a parent with you. Okay, so now we're going to paint these ones. And I'm just going to pour the paint directly onto my wax paper. And I think I'm going to use the leftover dough I have here because I didn't actually finish. And make an impression of this leaf. Pressing in all the corners to make sure I have an even, so it looks nice and good. Welcome to anyone who just joined or rejoined. So now, sorry you couldn't see that before. I'm going to lift it up And this one left a very cool pattern of the 3 lines. I forgot my brushes because they were still drying from yesterday when I did this. So I'm gonna squirt my paint right on my paper. You can get a plate anywhere that you can use your paint. So there's a little red. Welcome. Oh, my green came out very fast, but that's okay. I'm gonna use a lot of green for all of these plants. A little bit of yellow. So I think I'm gonna start with the impression I made of the Legos. Get some paint. I'm just gonna paint in where her face was. I don't have a good color for her hair, so maybe I'll have to mix one. And her arms are yellow. And then the rest of her is red because she's wearing red pants and a red shirt. I'm gonna mix a little bit of green and red. Now green and red don't really mix together very well, but they make brown because green and red are opposites. So I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow too. Mixing all 3 colors, I'm hoping that I get brown for her hair. Can you see that color? It is sort of a brown color, so I'm gonna paint that right there. There we go. I pick up my new brush. This is where you could also get some water to rinse off your brushes. I'm gonna paint this Lego right here yellow, just like the one that I used. And there we go, we made an impression and painted it of that one. But now I'm gonna get back to the plants because that was a very cool impression that we can make out of just toys. But I also have all these plants that I used to make my impressions. So now I'm gonna paint this one. I'm gonna paint the little one that I made. This one will make a really cool necklace or pendant. It can even be used as a gift. So I'm gonna paint in the lines of where the impression was made. Again, all I did was I took this and I pressed it in and I made this impression. So this one, I used this. And for this one, I used this. And now I'm painting these ones while they're still wet. And there are some in the oven to show you another way that you can dry them. So I'm just painting in the lines. You can't see that. I'm sorry. That works now. Then I'm gonna take some red and paint some little flowers on here. Maybe some yellow for some yellow flowers. There we go. I painted that one and that's what it looks like. So this one obviously is still wet, but as it dries, so will the paint dry. And it'll look very cool. And because we poked a hole in this one, you can wear it as a necklace or use it as a charm. I'm gonna lay that over there to dry. And I'm gonna keep painting. Oh, uh-oh. Got a little bit of paint on my pants. Okay. So I'm actually going to use this brown that I made earlier to paint the stem of this one. Paint it all the way up the and now I'm going to use some green to paint the lines that I made. This one's a whole leaf, so I'm going to paint in it, and you can see that the lines are actually showing up more with the paint. Oh, I picked up some green, but that looks really cool, so that's okay. If I said green, I meant red. And this one actually looks kind of like a little tree. I'm gonna hold it up to you upside down. I'm gonna paint my last one and I check those again. I'm gonna use this brown again because it is such a good color. I'm gonna use a very thin brush. So I'm gonna switch over to my other brush. Wipe it off in the water and on my paper towel. Using a thin brush, I'm going to paint on the lines that I made with this one. So I want it to look like that. Trying my best to follow those lines. Even then, my brush is still a little too thick. Okay. And now all of them are painted and they're going to dry really cool. So I'm going to set these ones aside and check on those, but if they're still not dry, I'm going to leave them in a little longer and we can paint some of the ones I made yesterday and I can show you the difference. So these ones are done. And the reason why they work in the oven and in the air is because the oven's heat just draws out the water faster. So I'm going to take this. They're still very hot, so I'm going to let them cool down and we're going to paint the other ones. So like I showed you, these are the ones I made yesterday. I made this little charm out of the impression of this spoon. And this one is actually starting to break. But like I said, that's the difference between using whole wheat and white flour. So this one I made out of the same plant that we made this one. And I painted it very similar too. Hi, Michaela. Someone said hi in the comments. So then this one I made using this fake plant here. And we're gonna paint this one now today. And this thing, if you look closely, you can see the pattern. It might show up better when we paint it. I actually made out of this. So I just pressed this up against it and it left an impression of this. And you don't just have to make flat things out of this. You can use it to craft it, to make anything. It's just easier to bake it if it's flat. So I'm gonna get my paint. Okay. I'm gonna paint this one with the very cool leaf that I showed you in the beginning. And now that it's sat overnight and it's dry, it has a different effect on the paint. I'm just painting straight lines in it, following the impression that it made. So when you're all done, I would love to see pictures of what you made. So if you send those or have your parent or caregiver tag us, and if we see it, maybe we'll post it. We love seeing what you guys make. So next, I'm just gonna add a little red too, right down the stem. Because the original, this fake plant that I showed you, it's kind of a orangey color. I wanted mine to be green. I'm gonna add some yellow just to make it a little brighter too. And as I mix my yellow right on here, it's starting to become lighter green. You can make lots of different colors. There we go. That's what that one looks like. I think that one turned out very cool. And remember, this one, it was air drying overnight. So that's why it's already done. We have ours that we've made today and painted today. And we have ours that we put in the oven that are cooling right now. So I'm gonna grab one of those and paint one of those, and then we'll be done. I think it was so cool that you all joined me today, and I really hope you guys did this activity. So I'm gonna push this aside. Grab these ones, and these ones are already nice and hard. They're a little hot though. So these ones are already hard, and they're got their impressions on them. So I think this one actually rose a little bit, so that's kind of silly. We're gonna paint this one because I really want to see what the dandelion turns out like. Thank you. Someone said they look very nice. Oh, I'm covering my paint. So again, I'm painting this little dandelion one. I'm just gonna try to paint the lines that I remember making and see if any of them show up. Because the dandelion, we weren't sure if it was gonna work. You can kind of see some of the lines. And when I paint the stem though, that's sure to show up. There we go. This one would be very cool too if it had a hole in it as a pendant. But because it's already dry, I don't think I'll be able to do that. Yeah, it's already dry all the way through. But that's okay. I'm really excited to paint this one because this one was the 3 leaves that I used. So this one we made from these 3 leaves. So this one was my favorite leaf that I picked up. I'm just going to paint in the lines. And then paint over this area. Try to find those lines I made in the leaf. So I've seen people do this with dinosaur toys and different animals. You can see the different paw prints like I showed you. Now my goat didn't have very cool paw prints, but maybe a lion or a dog would have cool ones. Michaela's gonna hang hers up. She's gonna make them ornaments like the ones I've shown you. I think that's very cool. I can't wait to see a picture of what you made. So in this one, you can really see those lines the leaf left. Here's my leaf. It's a little wilty now, but you can really see some of those lines that it left on the clay. So I'm going to paint my last one, which was this one. Remember, if you do this at home, you can use plants that you have at home, and they do make great Christmas ornaments. That's maybe why I have red and green here. But I wasn't thinking of Christmas because it's not quite Christmas yet. Oh, don't want to paint my hair. This one turned out awesome. This little leaf made lots of little marks on my clay. So because Michaela mentioned Christmas, I'm gonna make this one a Christmas ornament, even though it doesn't have a hole in it. Because that was a pine from a pine tree, or a little pine tree that we had inside, it's perfect. You can do it, make these for any holiday, or just for fun, like we did today. Mix that brown again, using all 3 of my colors. I'm going to use it to make a little hanging part, a little hook for my ornament. There you go, little ornament hanging on a tree. So we made so many things here. I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaf impressions, one of my Lego toys, and I made all those ones yesterday that I showed you. I think this was such a fun activity, and I really want to see what you guys make. So when you do this activity, either following along with me or later on at home, send us pictures of what you made. We can't wait to see. We love seeing your guys' creations. So thank you so much for joining me, guys. Bye.